Good afternoon. It's Joyful Christian Hermit. Happy, I think it's the third or fourth Sunday in Lent. I think it's the fourth Sunday. I'm so out of it, so exhausted and sore. And yesterday, all I really did was fill some cracks, tiny, like maybe 15 minutes of chipping. And then I managed the broom. I swept. A young man came and helped. A friend of the daughters came and helped use his hammer drill with the chisel on it and ground a huge swath, taking concrete off. So then my daughter would come along and grind down the rest of it with this angle grinder that was small, but it works, and hooked it up to a vacuum so we don't have as much concrete dust all over. But still, she'll have to vacuum everything, I'm sure, when she's finished. But it's coming along. But I would sweep away the debris as the man would get this all this debris, so he could just keep going. He didn't have to stop and keep brushing it aside. So I was the witch handling the broom. That was my main job, and I don't understand how exhausted I was. I knew I was exhausted going in there, but anyway, we got a lot accomplished. I did fill some cracks. That was good. And watched a tournament last night, just briefly. So I don't know how, by the grace of God, pushing me through, because I am so sore and so exhausted today. And thanks be to God, my neighbor did not like a dinner that she had made. Her husband didn't like it. Too spicy or something. And I just finished the second part of it for lunch. I had it for supper last night and just had it for lunch. Yes, it's spicy, but I turned down nothing. And it was so wonderful because I was too tired. I had nothing out to even fix for dinner. I mean, I don't fix meals or anything, so it's always a treat to get one of her delectable meals. And it turned out that she could make it again and not use as much chili or green chilies in it, but tasted like a chili relleno to me. It was delicious. And I was just so grateful to have something. All I had to do was microwave it and eat it. And I had some energy. So God provides. God provides. And what someone else doesn't want, I take and enjoy. So, but this is our Lenten Uplift, number 22. And I did it last night, but it just went on and on again, which is my issue. So I'm going to try to be a little more concise today. But I find it interesting. It's by St. John Chrysostom. It's a sermon on the parable of the talent, but it's very, very uplifting to all of us. It will be. And it's amazing, though, because St. John Chrysostom he was about 300 years after Christ had died. But he didn't interpret talent in the way that we know from scholars, or at the time of Jesus's life and of his parable, what it meant, what a talent was. In that time period, a talent was a coin. Well, it was two things. It was a unit of weight, which was a huge amount of poundage, but it was also a coin called a talent, which is how it was always used, what Jesus meant in this parable. Because, no one could give someone a master wouldn't give, 2 tons to somebody of some element or particle or dirt or whatever, metal. But in the coin definition for the biblical time period, it was worth 6,000 denarii, which was the equivalent of 20 years of a laborer's wages. So a huge amount of money. And so that's the meaning of it. But John Chrysostom evidently did not realize that, and he uses the meaning of a talent being a talent or gift were given by God. So I found that just interesting, that that was the interpretation by the 4th century, and at least to John Chrysostom. And it works well, because it would be the same if someone had all that money given them, 20 years worth of wages. It would have the same impact of something very, very valuable. But in this sermon, it is more actually relatable, having it be a talent or gift that we have given by God, that Jesus gives us talents in aspects that we can utilize to help truth, beauty, and goodness in the world. But it also works if it were a huge amount of money, which is the accurate, the technically scholarly interpretation of it. So one of the servants said, this is John Chrysostom's sermon, and he was a priest in Antioch, then became bishop of Constantinople, which was the head area of that time period, the head city, the center of the power of the Roman Empire. So he was all of the East, I guess it would be. He was doctor of the church, also made doctor of the church later for his writings and his preaching. One of the servants said, "Lord, you entrusted to me 5 talents, and another mentioned 2. So 5 talents monetarily, when Jesus was giving this parable, meant 100 years worth of money for a laborer. It would be 30,000 denarii, which would be the equivalent wages of 100 years of work for a common laborer. And another servant mentioned he'd gotten two talents. They acknowledged that they had received from him the means to carry out their duties well, and they give witness to their great gratitude and render their accounts to him. What does the master reply? Well done, my good and faithful servant, for it is the property of kindness to notice one's neighbor. That is an important statement right there, that it is the property of kindness. It's an element of being kind, a signal, a proof, an aspect of kindness, that we notice our neighbor, that we see them, and because some people can go through life just thinking mostly of themselves. It's in this neighborhood somewhat. I know names of a few of my neighbors around. Most people don't. They don't interact with each other. My next door neighbor knows names of people, even more names than I know, but I'm a hermit. It's not that I'm out, but I know of people and I know their names. I looked online even of who lived in what house, just to familiarize myself. So it's a property of kindness to know who our neighbors are and to notice them. Our literal neighbors and people in general, other people, humanity is our neighbor. So when we're in a store or in an appointment somewhere, or walking in a crowd, it's a property of kindness to notice people, to notice others. So he said, you have been faithful in small matters. I will set you over great matters. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Thus Jesus refers to the entire blessedness. That it's to enter into the joy of God is being blessed. That's the blessedness of God, is to enter into God's joy. And I want to put an aside here that Active, I think goes by the code name Active, left a comment that Pope Francis has said that we should be more joyful. And I laughed so hard. It just struck me as hilarious. I have an odd sense of humor, I guess. My mother told me that I have an odd sense, but I see humor in things. But I was grateful that he came to that he recognized at age 88 that we should have more joy. And and hopefully he knew that earlier in life, because joy is a major component of God. To know God is to have joy. It's rejoicing. The word rejoice, it's in the Old Testament a lot. Rejoice, have joy, express joy. But of course, it's inappropriate to express the outer joy in certain situations. We want to be appropriate with the outer expression, but technically we have joy all the time if we are in God. But entering into the joy of your Lord is very important for us as Christians, because that is receiving the blessedness of God. That is a good step, a good portion of being in union with God, is to enter into God's joy. Now, Jesus, says, have joy, take joy, rejoice. He's saying it here. You have been faithful, you've been kind. You have been faithful in small matters. I will now give you large matters to handle. Because these two servants handled it well. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Be blessed. Have that union with God, who is joy and love and glory. Joy is connected with glory. And joy does not have to have an outer happy element to it. Joy can be very subtle and very still within us. A blessing. And as I say, sometimes it's inappropriate to be showing outer joy, and it would be warped even to say be joyful in a situation of grieving, but have the joy within, and because we know the person will be saved, will be in heaven, or will enjoy the company of Christ. Oh, anyway, I did think it just struck me as funny, just a joyful laughter kind of thing. That to be told, to have joy, for the Pope to say that, that we need more joy. And of course, it's sort of a no-brainer, isn't it? Because it's in Scripture so much. We of course, children know. It's a basic to us to know, to be joyful, to have joy. And always within us. It may not show us without. Last night, I smiled and I chatted. When I went to watch this tournament, I was late for part of it because I had to get cleaned up and not look too horrible. I didn't want to embarrass my daughter. But joy is one of those things that is spiritual, like love. It's a spiritual aspect. It has mystery to it. Joy does. But it's lovely that Pope Francis recognizes that he too, all of us should have more joy. if we look at joy as a commodity, but if we look at joy from Christ's view of rejoicing and of a mysterious aspect of love, joy, that we have joy. Jesus, his love is in us. Therefore, he is in us. His love is in us. His joy is in us. So it's not necessarily a thing that we can make happen. It's in us with Christ, with love. And entering into the joy of God, that's something that we do, and we'll go on, continue how St. John Chrysostom explains it here. So it's good. Here, as for him who only received one talent, the servant or the person who only received one, that would be worth still a lot. 20 years would be the equivalent for one talent, one coin, worth 20 years of a laborer's income. He went off and buried it, though. Well, he was insecure. He was concerned he would lose it. He didn't want to make the master upset by losing what he gave him to invest. So the master said he went off and buried it. But at least he had something left to show. He didn't just squander what he was given. This good-for-nothing servant, throw him into the darkness outside, where there will be weeping and grinding of teeth. So you see, St. John Chrysostom, it isn't just the thief, the miser, the wrongdoer who will be punished at the end. It is also the person who fails to do good. Indeed, what are those talents? They are the power each one holds. So he's taking the word talent and broadening it beyond meaning wages paid. 20 years worth of wages to what we would have today, 20 years of wages to a hourly worker. Still, that would be a lot of money to have, to be given. But John Chrysostom is talking it about the goodness that we do, that is the value. That's worth all this great value. And in God's eyes, it would mean more than money. Our goodness, what we do for others, what our goodness is within ourselves. Indeed, what are those talents? They are the power each one holds. We have power. My pain is probably worth 5 talents alone, or as many years as I'm going to live with it. It's worth all that, because it is a power in itself. It's so powerful, it keeps me from a normal life, from a temporal life. It keeps me from that. Even if if I would watch something banal, something pointless, or read comics, or whatever, that had no point, no good message, it's not strong enough to keep my mind off the pain. So I would be seeking some other way to distract my mind than just stupid stuff. It's when even if I do manual labor, which I can't do much. I was the witch holding the broom yesterday, sweeping a little. Every time that he had a little bit that I needed to get out of his way, I would sweep it, put it in the dustpan and dump it. But it was helpful, at least, he could keep going rather than stopping, and he got more done that way. That was what I was thinking. This strong man can do so much better than we could do. You utilize him for the 2 hours he was there, every second. So, but if I'm doing manual labor, even when I was doing the broom, the sweeping, my mind was I was thinking of how lovely it was that this young man came. This friend of my daughter's came and lent his hammer, his drill hammer, big powerful thing that we can use also, but did that work that he got more done in 2 hours than we could have in 6 hours. So the value of that, I was praising God. I was still praising God for the tile man who's honest and good, very experienced, and not fleecing people. He could charge double like everyone else was. But he was doing good. His heart, he was doing goodness. He wasn't taking advantage of anyone. And how that means to people, to us, to my daughter and me, because I was going to try to do the tiling then. It was going to be too expensive, and I'm honestly not up for all that. I mean, I could. It would take me probably a month, maybe. I'd have to go a little bit at a time. Maybe not a month, but it would be hard on me because I can't get down on my left knee well. And so it'd be even, slower doing it, trying to bend my knees and lean over to place them. God gave me long arms, extra long arms. So that's a help. But see how it is. So we use this time, however we use our time, our thoughts when we're in pain or suffering matters. Use it for good, for praising God, or for being grateful, or for conversing with God. Go over our problems with him, our concerns, our upsets, and say, here, Lord, please take this from me, or give me insights on how to handle it. So that isn't a happy, joy, outer kind of thing when we're talking over our temporal issues or trials or sufferings. Yet there's the inner joy of being united with God. That's the joy. So I don't know if Pope Francis meant that kind of joy or understood that, or if he wants people to be just more outwardly joyful. But I do it because of Jesus. Jesus says it, So I've known that we're to be more joyful since I was a little child. My parents taught me that. Sunday school teacher taught me that in preschool, Sunday school. We would sing joy songs about Jesus and how Jesus wanted us to be happy and to be good children, and how doing good for others and obeying our parents would make them happy and it would make us feel good. So we learn joy at an early age. And, how much it can please others. And my dad also was big on outer joy. Get your smile on. Use that beautiful smile, he'd say. And he always, not always, but most of the time had a smile. Sometimes to the point, though, that it was a little bit unnecessary, He and his sister, they must have been reared by their mother, and they have another brother too. It was practically forced, and I don't know about that kind. I guess it's a good habit to get into, but sometimes you want to be able to relate with another person who can grasp grief and sorrow. But I saw that in my dad at times, the sorrow. But I knew he still had Christ in him and joy in him, love in him. But it was easier to go to my mother with problems because she didn't always have this big smile, And, I just felt like, she would relate maybe. But that might have been a female thing too. I don't know. But you get what I'm saying, is that joy is like love. It's mysterious. It's an essence that, yes, it can have outer temporal ramifications, which maybe Francis I, having just been so sick and nearly dying, is thinking about himself, realizing, oh, being appreciative and having a smile on my face, or just so happy that he lived when he was going to die twice. He was at death's door twice when he was in the hospital. Miraculous that he lived. Everyone's prayers were answered to have him live. Those, but it isn't just that. God wanted him to live. God has more to teach him. But Francis is maybe looking around now and thinking, oh, we've all got to have more joy. Everyone needs to have more joy. It seems so profound to him that he realized that, probably from the shock of his death. I remember with my death experience when I had died and was brought back, but I had encountered God. That's what God was so real. I asked my kids, the one daughter made a big banner. I said, do it. We had this printer, early printer and an early printer, the kind that chugged and printed out with the little spriggets on the sides of the paper. A big banner. Our purpose is to glorify God. Glory, joy, I knew they didn't realize it, but, they wouldn't have had their mother rearing them. Life would have changed had I insisted with God. I don't know. He knew me. He knew I couldn't say I would go back, but he knew I recognized when he showed my children and that they would be reared by their dad, and he showed their dad in a terrible temper. And he had a terrible temper. And he could be very cruel. He had shown that side to me many times, and all the time after the divorce or after the separation, when he finally admitted. But he was getting close to that point prior, just being very mean all the time. So, and to the children, he didn't care. He was being very flippant and loses temper easily, and he had continued in that mode. He'd have women over when they would visit. He'd drop the girls off, ages 6 and 8, at a movie theater in Long Beach, California, by themselves, little girls. Then he'd go back and the baby would have his nap and there'd be a woman there. The girls would tell me he had to have sex alone with his woman, whatever woman he had at the time. So in the afternoon, he couldn't wait till they were in bed at night or whatever. It's just pathetic. And all of this God showed me just in his face, and that temper and that puffed redness. And so all I could do was, I'll do what you want, Lord. Well, he sent me back. So all that encounter was so joyous and filled with glory that I knew that was our purpose, was to glorify God. Well, it's everybody's purpose. Glorify God. And that means joy. Have joy, but it's not just the outer. What matters really most is the inner. We will have joy on the other side. Joy will go with us. Love will go with us. Love and joy aren't going to stay with our bodies, either incinerated or buried. Whatever, way you decide to have your body disposed of, or other people decide for you. So this is the mystery of it. And he goes on further. St. John Chrysostom says here, about the wrongdoer will be punished in the end. But that's the person who fails to do good also, because they haven't appreciated that God is in us and all that God gives us to invest. And these 3 words in the Bible, I think they're only mentioned once in the New Testament: truth, beauty, and goodness. Truth, beauty, and goodness. That's, if we live in those three words, emanating those three words, truth, beauty, and goodness, we will be entering into the joy of the Lord, into his blessedness. Now, if we are untrue to ourselves, even, well, I'll go on and read this more other part. So that, each one of us holds power. Each one of us has authority that we enjoy. God gives us authority over our own lives and over all the natural world. I'm going to mow the grass this afternoon. That's my authority to do that. It will help the grass be, if it gets too long, it will become unhealthy eventually. And then also it won't be happiness to the HOA president and his vice president who lived right down the street. They won't like that. But then how would I mow it? Things get out of hand. So we have authority to keep things in bounds, to prune. Pruning it makes it thicker. I prune down the roses. I will prune the other perennials. I tend to wait till spring to prune them down. Let them overwinter. So then, the fortune that we possess, we have fortune. It can be tangible and temporal fortune that we possess, that we can use for good. But we also have inner fortune. We have God in us, Christ in us, Jesus and us in Jesus. He says, "Remain in my love, and my love will remain in you." And that means him, because he is love. God is love. So we have any number of fortunes, possessions. And the teaching one is able to give. I taught my daughter, I'd studied it, and I've also done cracks before, but these were different. They were interior, and I wanted to get it right. So I taught her how to fill cracks out the proper way, and why we put this backer rod down in, this foam backer rod. It's a round tube kind of foam, real thick foam, and stuffed that down in the crack. I had to cut a big size into quarters and stuff that down in because it was a 1/4 inch crack, and then I overstuffed it again to get it, filled in more with that foam. Otherwise, you put your caulk in or your cement filler, your crack filler, and it just keeps going down, down, down. You can also fill the crack with sand, but you use so much sand because it goes down as deep as the foundation, as deep as the crack is in there. So I taught her those things in case she, has something sometime that she needs to do. And same with, we're learning how to get this concrete up. But what we're learning is perseverance. I remember one time, I don't know, I'd finished a section. And of course, I was moaning around trying to move. I was in a tight quarter. Well, it was the master bathroom. And I stood up and I said, "I am the queen of perseverance." I laughed. And she says, "Indeed you are, Mom, you are." She says, "It's the truth, you are." And I said, "Well, God has given me that, hasn't he, over all these years?" And I said, because I didn't think I could even get down. I was chipping around edges in that master bath. I could even get down to do that. And I said, God has helped me be able to do that, to accomplish this, and to be able to stand back up. But it's taken me a day just to get my back straightened back out. So anyway, it's just to teach anything. I called my friend today. I hadn't talked to her. I bet it's been a year. We text. And she's back in the Midwest. And she's the one that bears a heavy cross. of a inherited mental illness. It's medicated, and you wouldn't know. I mean, maybe to be around her, you would sense, but she's very intelligent. Her medication's working well. She's very intelligent, reading wonderful books, and we had a wonderful conversation, and it was just lovely to hear her voice. But she says, just excuse me a minute. She has an adult son who lives with them, and he was baking bread. She says, John's baking bread. And I could hear in the background, I'll give you another tip on what I do to make it successful. And she told him what temperature to have the oven to get it warm. It's not warm enough there to set out to rise in the sun with covering over it, in the shade, but to have warmth for the outdoors. So she had him set the oven at a low temperature, certain temperature. And then I couldn't hear the rest, but she said, I'm going to give you another tip on when you take it out when it's finished rising, so it'll be extra successful. He was learning to bake bread. He had just had I think he's 46, and he works during the day, but he's interested in different things. He's very talented. He's a theology master's, and he's a great musician, and he's was interested in learning to bake bread. He'd seen his mom make it. I think his dad even makes bread sometimes. So they're a Renaissance family kind of thing. It's fun, and try different things. And I told her about this. I said, this is so good. You're teaching him. You're passing on something to him that he'll always remember. Your secret to success with bread baking. And he says here, St. John Chrysostom, and do anything else of a similar kind, of any kind of goodness to others. Our prayers, mental, silent prayers, are having a good attitude. Even if we can't do another thing for another person, we're suffering, we can't talk. Maybe we can't hear. Maybe we're blind. But if we have a good attitude, if we're not refusing medicine, or we're not refusing help, or maybe we can get our face muscles to give a smile, or at least not be grimacing. Or even just within ourselves to keep a good attitude. If everything else of our body's paralyzed, to have a good attitude, that is something that we can offer. And people sense people who have good attitudes compared to those who don't. It doesn't mean having a big smile on your face, or being cheerful when there's been a horrible accident or something, inappropriate, or being joyful just for the sake of being joyful, because Francis once says we need to be more joyful. It's more of an inner thing, an inner joy. We can always have an inner joy, no matter what, because we have the assurance of God in us. We can always enter into the Lord's joy and his blessedness if we are doing good, truth, and beauty. If we're thinking in terms of beauty, of making our surroundings beautiful. It can be a temporal thing, temporal beauty, or the inner beauty. We can even give someone a compliment of how lovely they look, or what a beautiful smile they have, or their eyes are beautiful, or anything, or their gestures, or the world. Keep the world beautiful. Have our attitudes beautiful and honest. Truth is crucial. To be always truthful and honest. That's a basic for living our lives and giving back to God. All this goes along with love. You know, if we aren't truthful, if we don't have within ourselves the truth and beauty and goodness of God, we don't have God in us. If we're not exemplifying these things, yes, we make errors from time to time. That's different. Then we recognize, we apologize to God in truth, in beauty and goodness. We make reparation if we've hurt someone or done something to the earth that we shouldn't have. Tossed trash out, perhaps you left our trash out. We go back and pick it up. Or we see other people who have left trash and we pick it up and remember the time that we didn't. We make amends. I do that at the dog park. We're supposed to pick up our own dog's poop. Every now and then I'll go around while my dogs are playing and I'll just pick up poop that other people didn't pick up. Because at some point in time, I remember one time I could not find Mercy's. It's little, and the grass was deep and thick, and it was dusk. So someone else picked up for me. I walked around back and forth, couldn't find it. Someone even helped me looking. Finally, it got too dark. I said, okay, somebody else will do it for me, and I'll make up for others, That kind of life, even though no one will ever know about it. God knows. All of these things make us fit to enter into the Lord's joy and into God's blessedness. So he concludes with this sermon, St. John Chrysostom. So let no one come and say, I've nothing but one talent. I can't do anything. For even with only one talent, even with just ourselves, you can act in a praiseworthy manner. Always we can do that. Even hermits who are 95% alone, at least I am, or more, probably the percentage is more that I'm in here, or in my own yard, not encountering people. I can go for several days without encountering anyone. That's why this last week has been amazing, that I've been forced, and I needed it. God provided. Even the driving. I wasn't used to driving. Now I'm getting more comfortable to it. I'm not as dizzy. I was only dizzy 2 days last week. Maybe all of that extra work has helped loosen something, or it might have been the physical therapy helped, obviously. Probably did. But, I'm so grateful for all these things. And that's what we have to do. That's the joy. We may not look joyful. We may look like dead lady walking or dead man walking. We may have the weight of the world on us. And there's nothing outer joyful about that. And it's sort of phony to fake it. I mean, we don't want to go around, making other people feeling sorry for us or anything like that. But truth is being ourselves. If you're going through rough times, to fake a big smile or, everything's great, I'm joyful. No. Then how can other people know to assist? To give them an opportunity to do truth, beauty, and goodness to you, to help you, to uplift you, to listen to their woes or their concerns. See, and then that helps them get back in touch with their inner joy, to help bear and reassure them, or help them sort through a problem. Say, well, notice these things, and then pray about it, and God will lead you. That if this person does this or that, when they're supposed to do something else, and that's going to be a problem, then you can make a decision with that person and pray about it and see what you can tolerate, what you think you can tolerate. Or if someone's having financial problems, even if you can't help them financially, you can listen and you can encourage and remind them, that just pay off what you can, explain to who you owe, and offer to make little tiny payments. Or I have a little I can lend you. If it's somebody, if you have a bill collector over you that's threatening or paying exorbitant interest, well, I'll be the bank then and charge you 2% when the bank's charging you 15%. Or if you have bad credit, these credit places will charge 30% interest to know that someone's in a tight bind. So we can offer different options to others. So it's joy and love are interior essences predominantly. They're what go with us when we die. Love especially, but joy is the Lord's joy. It says, enter into the joy of the Lord. Thus, Jesus refers to entire blessedness, full blessedness of God, is when we do with little or big what is truth, beauty, and goodness, including ourselves, especially ourselves, not just intangible actions or thoughts or words, but our whole essence, as he says, to act in a praiseworthy manner. And that means interior action. Interior action. So God bless his real presence in us, and bless Pope Francis with his, it's good to be reminded to be joyful and to remember what that joy is, and that it doesn't need to be the outer temporal kind of joy, but it can be. However, but just remember, what you were taught as a child from Scripture, from Bible. Jesus says, be joyful, rejoice always. St. Paul says, I say it again, rejoice. I say it again, rejoice. Something we learn as little children, and it's very good to learn, along with truth, beauty, and goodness. We will have the peace of Christ in us when we live his love and enter into the Lord's joy. Then we will have also his blessedness. Thank you, St. John Chrysostom, for that sermon.